conclude so people say to me, Howard, you're not a bacteriologist. And I say that's true. But fortunately, bacteriologists have written excellent books for the non-scientist. And one bacteriologist, the author of A Field Guide to Bacteria, Betsy Dexter Dyer, professor at Wheaton College in Massachusetts, has looked at this next poem and told me that everything in it is exactly correct. So she also said it was a brilliant poem, so that was nice to hear. And it's the only poem, I believe, in existence in world literature about bacteria. And bacteria, very underappreciated, they really are the foundational beings of the biosphere and create the conditions for all of the creatures, including us, to live. Scholars' Rocks, the ode about bacteria. The epigraph is, let's have a universal spirit that protects and loves the whole creation. Koichi Tohei. That's an Aikido sensei whose style I studied. The rocks in the garden, these perpendicularities in Portland, tortuous and massive, gray, grotesque, imbued with power preternatural that overwhelm. These scholars' rocks, the cliffs in miniature from which the microcosmic cataract cascades, the sounding waterfall possessing me like passion, like great joy at insight into harmony and freedom. I just realized why this seems blurry. Much better. That emerges from the limestone verticality as from a mountainscape, that gushes forth from these fantastic slabs dredged up from Lake Tai's bottom near Suzhou, where they precipitated maybe 2 millennia ago, and brought to Lansu Garden north of Burnside near the river, where we view them now, wife Hope and I. These massive stones that will endure when memory of us and all our deeds has vanished utterly. We whose imaginations overflow with images and with associations summoned forth by these deep hollows, twists, strange grooves, weird pits and holes that sulfide oxidizing proteobacteria have sculpted. All these bulging convolutions and this play of gullies on the sedimented surfaces that lake bacteria have made to mimic mountain cliffs, converging gorges, jagged crags, the jumbled scarps, the riddling caverns and the dark ravines, amidst which we can vividly imagine old Han Shan the hermit up above the world of towns and cities, as he pens with brush and ink his poetry that flows but stays, like cataract and stone. And hence, perhaps, anachronistically of the protoplanetary disks where the new stars and planetary systems are constructed constantly from the molecular, cold clouds of interstellar stardust. So we feel his oneness with the cosmic energy and see the portal to the spirit of the universe that is his humble hut. A sight so open to the earth and sky. The rocks in the garden were carved by bacteria, were shaped by the descendants of those aboriginal prokaryotes who first formed living cells 4 billion years or so ago beneath that darkly red, anoxic sky. The primitive, half-hewn bacteria who used clay crystals for a while as low-tech genes to replicate themselves and also store the needed molecule of energy, adenosine triphosphate. All those tiny Eves and atoms at the dawn of evolutionary time, from whom we certainly developed and who soon unlocked the nitrogen of their environment, the element inside the triple bond and diatomic gas that currently makes up 4/5 of our Earth's atmosphere, but only the bacteria can access. This required material for genes and proteins that allowed these tiny living rods, balls, helices, and squiggles to disperse around the globe, until by 2.5 millennia ago the planet's landscape turns resplendent with reds, oranges, pinks, yellows, purples, greens of living slimes, scums, crusts, and mats, a nested, fractal net of biospheric beings, the prodigious progeny of burgeoning bacteria who transfer genes directly cell to cell and have no nuclei or chromosomes, don't age, smell chemotactically, socialize, remember, know, decide, communicate in quorum sensing, heal, metabolize, adapt, improve, show mind collectively, swim, recognize each other and identify bacteria from alien colonies, invent, improve, create themselves continuously, can redouble their own population every half an hour, see light, learn, feel, Descartes was wrong, and strive. For their vitality is this totality of functions that resist the entropy of cosmic heat death, and their autopoesy refers to life's production of itself from universal spirit. Oh, those nanotechnological inventors of the biosphere, whose mere existence is the most improbable condition, metastable, open to competing systems, and ephemeral, and upon whose doings all we other later life forms utterly depend, were carved by bacteria in whorls of reversal, in changes, good or bad, depending on your point of view, like the most fundamental turnabout the biosphere has ever undergone, the revolution introducing oxygen in massive quantities into the atmosphere, until by 2 millennia ago, the sky had turned the beautiful cerulean we see today, a wonder brought about by bluish-green bacteria that had invented photosynthesis, a great disaster for the anaerobes, who'd been alive and dominating Earth for those 2 millennia already. As pure oxygen is toxic, is a poison and carcinogen that aerobes somehow learn to tolerate and use for extra energy and more connection with the cosmic autopoesy of stars, combines with everything it can and then accumulates in air, produces 16 times more power out of burning sugars than did earlier metabolisms, is why there's fire on Earth at all, provides the basis for our respiration, for raw inspiration, and for spirit literally. Spiritus means breath. Is an anomaly resulting from incessant action globally by gas-exchanging organisms, and makes it possible for larger creatures to evolve and thrive, which isn't now to minimize the ancient ecological catastrophe that oxygenization of the atmosphere inflicted on the settled order of all earthly life back then. A tragedy for those of us who feel, a comedy for those who think. Theodicy 2 billion years before the world was born. In whorls of reversal and spirals of spirit, such flowing endosymbiosis whereby 1.7 billion years ago a predatory purple oxygen-respiring alpha proteobacterium had penetrated, then let live its larger prey, an anaerobic, autotrophic, hyperthermophilic archaebacterium, who then entered into partnership with its attacker, a symbiogenesis wherein it made the food, while the aerobic alpha stayed inside and processed oxygen, becoming a new cell together through cooperation, the wild ancestor to all eukaryotic cells forever after, to each one of us with our bacteria-derived, combustive, spirit-making mitochondria, protoctist first with nuclei, meiotic sex, and programmed cell death, then agglomerations of protoxis that became the animals, the fungi, and the plants in just that order from 600 to 500 million years ago, so that we pair of primates, Hope and I, can stand here side by side and hand in hand amid the swirling of good geomantic influences that the garden has collected, each of us composed of some 10 trillion nucleated cells and hosting full 10 times as many useful symbionts, bacteria inhabiting our body cavities and helping us digest and much else. Our enormous size, colossal level of activity, quick muscles, and so zippy nervous systems powered by the mitochondria in every cell converting oxygen to supernovae sent, allowing us to feel the way, I know she feels it too, the universe is autopoic, always fashioning new stars, never winding down athwart the entropy, the same as Earth is autopoic, always making novel life forms, never fading out or losing its connection to the irresistibly creative spirit flowing through the cosmos on all levels of vibration, vast to tiny, the divine breath animating all, and spirals of spirit that nurture our nature, that make our food from water, sun, and air, these autotrophs, ubiquitous self-feeding cells whose fossilized stromatolites remain from 3 millennia ago, who use the hydrogen from water, energy from sunlight, and the carbon from the air to forge a basis for the planetary food chain, thus enable nourishment for all the other living cells on Earth, for herbivores or carnivores, for gatherers and hunters both, for microscopic and gigantic beings all dependent indirectly or directly on the autotrophs, on bluish-green or grassy-green bacteria, as well the algae and the plants that have evolved from them. Since chloroplasts inside both plants and protists once were spherical bacteria, ingested but allowed to live, another endosymbiosis critical to evolution on our little globe, a huge symbiogenesis wherein the swimming protists, who of course already had incorporated vital mitochondria, consumed resistant green bacteria that stayed alive inside the new transparent vegetarians, who in exchange for food provided transportation to sunlit waters, a perdurable cooperation evident today in DNA of organelles within the cells of nucleated photosynthesizers. So that 1.3 millennia ago, the algae had arrived, and by 500 million years ago, the lively plants, permitting Hope and me to linger on this patio outside the hall of brocade clouds, just gaze across the lotuses of Zither Lake, to emblematic cliffs amid this vibrant vegetation that fulfills this place with life, that nurture our nature and fashion our future, and posit us two aging humans standing here beside each other with a couple billion everyday bacteria inhabiting the 4 square meters of our skin, which daily offers such diverse terrain for them, the arid deserts of our forearms, the cool forests of the scalp, the steaming jungles of the armpits, all the habitat providing skin flakes, oils, and sweat for food. Ensconced the cozy two of us beside each other here, remarking on the wet oil scent called geosmin, the earth smell that's a fragrant field mark of gram-positive bacterial actinomycetes, and that indicates the soil is good for growth. Deploy us pair of loving hominids right here before this rockery that's home for the immortals, luring them into this garden where their secrets for longevity might be revealed to us, this wonder-working garden, where the stones condense the potent wildness of the cosmos and confer by sympathetic magic its renewing them. This idly Tao-concentrating garden, built by artists from Suzhou, sister city, founded back in the 6th century BC and home to sages, scholars, and inspiring rocks, the stony talismans of mighty mountains, always offering potential energy to the beholder of the boulders. Situate us tandem soulmates in this interval between our trip a little earlier this afternoon to Amzi with our grown-up children and our growing grandkids, where we saw the fossil T-Rex they call Samson from some 60 million years ago. And just a little later on this evening at our daughter's happy household, the first birthday party for our youngest grandson, strapping Max, the nitrogen-enabled chain of our nucleic acid stretching out into the forming future from the fading past. Oh yes, impel us both to see where on one peak a hawk is perched in solitary grandeur, a literary bird of prey and pure imagination, fictional but even truer than the facts and spiritual, mind and body unified on high and ever watchful, ready to soar forth in action now. Its thought and deed is one above the mystic presence of the microcosmic rock, so that we feel we're there beside the mythic bird atop the venerable glory of the cliff. confronted by an elemental nil, incessantly reshaping all the star stuff of our world, then look aloft and think the sky is home because the universe is one place everywhere, and fashion our future.
Climate. Earth is warming. Never in the history of the planet has the temperature increased so rapidly, a change brought about by the combination of exploding population numbers, economic growth, and industry built on fossil fuels. We have what is known as climate commitment. Even if we stop burning fossil fuels tomorrow, we are committed to a warmer climate because of the carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere. Even if our most ambitious efforts to lower emissions are successful, the fact remains that we now inhabit a different planet than the one on which human civilization developed and on which it has lived throughout its history. It is warm and getting warmer. The question will be how much, and how we and our fellow living beings will adapt. After 2 centuries of fossil fuel consumption, science tells us that the Earth system has become destabilized and Gaia's condition is guarded. Still, there are grounds for hope. If we are very committed, the climate will eventually stabilize and carbon dioxide concentration will eventually begin to fall below 350 parts per million. At that point, assuming that geochemical cycles, remaining ecosystems, and other planetary components have stabilized, the parts of the Earth system which survive will be able, slowly, to soak up the excess carbon dioxide and restore balance. However, much will have changed. Earth, when it settles into a new state of equilibrium, will not be the same as it was before. Between now and then lies the transition, and that is where we live now. This transition back to stability will take centuries. Science tells us that the climate impacts of fossil fuels are expected to last at least hundreds, probably thousands of years. The work we do now is for a future we will never see. This work, the stabilization of Earth's climate to maintain livability of the biosphere for us and so many fellow creatures, may be the most consequential work any of us will ever do. And the last chapter, working as agents for change. One idea that is central to sustainability is called the triple bottom line, the 3 pillars of sustainability: environment, economics, and equity. As a planet, we have many problems that are connected: poverty, overpopulation, political instability, resource depletion, food and water scarcity, and the destruction of the life support systems we all depend on. We can't fix one problem in isolation because they are all connected. The first E stands for environment. The health of living systems in the environment is critical, but it's not the only requirement if our goal is a system that is sustainable. Our environmental problems are a consequence of the ways we've organized ourselves socially, politically, and economically. So the second E is economics. For systems to continue long-term, resources have to be distributed fairly, with each person able to meet their own needs. If you're a father living in a rainforest, and you know that if things go on as they are, your children will starve, But if you cut down your trees and plant soybeans, you'll get money. What will you choose? If your children are hungry, you cannot stop to think about long-term results. But if there were a system where retaining the trees and keeping the stream water clean meant you could feed your children, you would probably do that instead. The third E represents equity. Social equity means providing opportunities for all people to grow and flourish in their own way, not just a privileged few. Equity also includes other generations, our neighbors in time. The most common definition of sustainable development says that it meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. A larger purpose underlies sustainability work: transformation, transforming civilization toward a regenerative system which promotes healthy ecosystems, consumes resources no faster than they can be replenished, releases toxins no faster than they can be absorbed, allows wastes from one cycle to become nutrients for another, fosters healthy, cohesive communities with opportunity for all, and continues into the long-term future. Moving toward a more sustainable world requires true partnerships among very different people. The issues we face are comprehensive, and the only way to take sustainable solutions to scale is to include everyone. You can't do everything, and you can't be an expert at everything. There are many directions in which to work, and like an ecosystem with many niches, we need them all. When we look at the world and read it as our instruction manual, one thing we notice about living systems that are resilient is that they all feature diversity. We know that words like sustainability and social justice are disturbing to some people. So we can talk about outcomes that are positive for everyone. Strong, thriving communities with economic opportunity for everyone and participation in governance by as many people as possible. The biosphere is our support system, and so in order to have those other things we want, we have to keep the life support system in good shape. Humans have gone through several major transitions in their history: the discovery of fire, the development of language, agriculture and settlements, and the Industrial Revolution. We live at the threshold of another major turning, at the beginning of the Anthropocene epoch, as humanity moves away from an industrial age built on fossil fuel and economic growth, and towards what could turn out to be a steady-state economy within a regenerative, sustainable society. Can we envision what life on the other side of this transition might be like? It seems clear that nearly every aspect of our modern way of living will be transformed to some degree, from where and how we grow our food, to how we transport ourselves and our goods, to how those goods are made. We can expect a resurgence in high-quality, durable goods, locally made and reused for generations. The mission of education will expand, teaching learners about local ecology and giving them experience with skills for self-reliance. Civics will become important as people relearn skills for participating in democratic governance. Humans will take a more active role in the health of the biosphere. Job markets will shift as some jobs become obsolete while new green economy jobs appear. We may still occasionally drive personal vehicles, but most people will take advantage of interconnected public transit networks. Energy will come increasingly from renewable sources, transmitted over networked microgrids. Communities will be more decentralized and more resilient. Buildings, landscapes, food, and social structures will look different in each place as placelessness becomes a relic of an earlier time. Human connections across the globe using information technology will continue to build collective learning, even as local clusters become more self-reliant and resilient, a robust exemplar of classic scale-free networks at a planetary scale. A question often raised is whether we should be optimistic or pessimistic, whether we should feel hope or despair. This may be an unhelpful dichotomy, for both positions ask us to predict a future that is, in fact, unknown, and both give us reasons not to act. What we know, based on reliable evidence, is that, at the least, Earth's climate will be changing, and its oceans will be rising for centuries to come. The era of a petroleum-powered, ever-expanding economy will come to an end. And a significant portion of species alive today will no longer be with us. To feel sorrow and even despair in face of this reality is reasonable. A stage of grieving as we move from denial to a more productive stage. On the other hand, blind optimism, the belief that all will be well because nature always finds a way, is not so productive. We should remember that if nature makes adjustments, its new state may well not include us. There is a third path, action. A Latin proverb says, "If there is no wind, row." The way to move away from debilitating despair and paralyzing optimism is to do, to choose to act from a position of engaged, active hope based on a positive vision. At the beginning of the civil rights era, even though a realistic assessment showed clear evidence of racism deeply embedded all around him, Dr. Martin Luther King's speech was not, "I have a nightmare." His speech was a call to action. "I have a dream." Find a place to stand. Choose what you love. Start from there. Do what you can, and connect with others. What we know about networks and systems tells us that all of us, acting collectively, can shift the system's trajectory. Well, it has been a true pleasure to share this time with you, and I hope that there have been some bright moments for you as well. I really love you. I'm so happy you're here. And in case you were wondering, you can buy all of these books here in Tsunami. Scott has a table full of them right over there. And just one more time, we would like to thank Tsunami Books for hosting this reading. Tsunami really is the community's bookstore. And I hope you will...